Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Once again, I saw a movie, so you won't have to. And if you don't have kids or grandkids, there may be a reason not to. It's not because the film Toy Story 5 is terribly bad. It's not because it's terribly good. It's just because it's an okay movie. It's a movie to exist, to perpetuate a franchise, and that's all Disney is right now. A perpetuator of IP. They don't really do anything new, and Stanton certainly didn't. And this just reminds everybody who was a fan of animation by Pixar way back in the day that John Lasseter's no longer there. Anyway, I've got a review for you, so maybe you don't have to go to a movie that I found to be average at best. And I'll score it in just a moment. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K, so if you see that the subscribe button is there and it says subscribe, click on it, become subscribed, and then click the bell icon and then select turn on all notifications. After that, a thumbs up is truly appreciated. It'll help this video go far and wide. And of course, if you want to leave comments down below, which I highly encourage because that's interaction, that'll help as well. Look, I went to this movie with no preconceived notions, despite knowing an awful lot about it and understanding the very well-detailed plot synopsis. I will say this, it wasn't a bad movie. In fact, the things that I found a little frustrating was, some of the toilet humor that makes its way into this, some of the pokes at Woody for being an old man, some of the other elements here that I think don't belong in this kind of a film, especially one where you really need the moms and dads to be kind of a hero in this situation. I'm going to say this, there were a lot of adults in my showing. There were a lot of Disney adults in my showing with girls wearing tiaras, carrying Disney bags. And while, look, there's nothing wrong with that, it just showed me that maybe the audience I was with was a little bit prejudiced in their willingness to accept what this film was for what it was. And again, while Conan O'Brien's new character brings a little bit of humor, it's very lowbrow humor at that. There's, a lot of potty training jokes that I just feel didn't land, but the message overall wasn't bad. So let's start there. First and foremost, the plot makes sense for a change. There is a through line that makes sense all the way from beginning to end. And the main character is really desperate to make friends. And in a world where it's very hard to do unless you're plugged into something. And that's kind of the whole structure of the film. In order to, connect with people, you have to be plugged into something. The discussion about whether devices and screens are good or bad. And again, the absence of the understanding that maybe the adults could have been the arbiters of what was good and what was bad from the very beginning wasn't something that was explored. They let the young lady play with the screen that was introduced, the lily pad that was introduced very early on. And this is going to have big box office. Nothing's going to stop it from that. The franchise might be rekindled because of this film, although really it's only slightly better than Toy Story 4. And again, while it is female-centric, and that's perfectly fine, these last two films have been, it's not so much so that you don't get stories for the boys. Woody has a pretty good story. Buzz has a pretty good story. Buzz's story is a little more interesting, that's for sure. And I like the idea that, there's a good relationship between Bo and Woody. But what I don't enjoy is that, even she is emasculating Woody at a couple of points. If you look at this is definitely going to set 2026 year-to-date records, as Anthony D'Alessandro says here. They're anticipating 150 million U.S. opening, and I think that's reasonable. The early first look that everybody else got not that long ago was an accurate one. And again, this story is all the way back from May 28th. This is a target that's going to be pretty easy to hit, unlike with Supergirl, which will be lucky to get $150 million total here domestically, which Supergirl, I predict, after I review it next weekend, will be, again, one of the lowest rated films that I have seen. Regardless, Rotten Tomatoes is coming in strong, just to add some comparison to the conversation. Toy Story 5 at 95% on the tomato meter is no surprise. We knew this was going to be reviewed well. We also knew that, Toy Meets Tech was going to be an interesting conversation. And while you could definitely get your tickets online through Fandango, go somewhere else and go see a matinee and spend less money. This doesn't need to be on the biggest possible screen. It won't benefit from it. It just needs to be on a screen with a decent sound system. But again, Conan O'Brien playing Smarty Pants is, well, pretty good. And unfortunately, Joan Cusack does not sound like she's largely with it for a lot of her role. Tim Allen is enjoying his Buzz Lightyear character, and honestly, Tom Hanks doesn't say enough to be, well, anything anybody else is, going to be too fired up about. Regardless, you can see that there's a lot of high ratings here. Adam Graham from the Detroit News gave it a, certified fresh tomato here. There's a folksy charm that's still at the center of the Toy Story series, which is now like revisiting an old friend. And that actually is not a positive. After 31 years, this franchise hasn't seemed to do too much to move the message forward or to move the ideas forward. There's not a lot of evolution here, despite, the opportunities to do so. In fact, there is some, hidden messaging here that I don't think anybody will find terribly offensive. There's no foul language, of course, which is welcome because Disney seems to be willing to introduce that into some of their media that's aimed at children, and at least that's absent here. I can't say that I'm going to be terribly excited to see some of the preview films that Disney presented during the course of this presentation. I think Hex is going to be a disaster when it comes out, but that'll be for another day. To move back onto a understanding of the storyline progresses. It is solid beginning to end. Jesse's got a great through line. Bonnie has a nice through line. There are very emotional moments that figure prominently into the film. As I said before, it's not offensive in any way. It's just not what you would hope you would get based on the first three films. And that's the problem. I'm comparing or trying to compare apples to apples. And unfortunately, Stanton and the other people involved here aren't up to Lasseter's level. And you know what? I'm just going to have to deal with that, and so are the audiences who are looking for that. The soundtrack is fun, and of course, Taylor Swift's song is actually pretty good and engaging, especially at the end of the film. I didn't feel like I got presented with a lot of theme music throughout. I got a lot of quality sound effects and atmospherics. Animation was, well, pretty good. Not quite the top-notch stuff that we deserve, but pretty good. And I really do think that the character of Lily Pad grows throughout the film. Like you said, I didn't leave there disliking any of the characters, which is a shift with a lot of animations I've seen recently. And I didn't leave with a particularly hyped up emotional state, nor did I leave with an emotional state that had been destroyed like I did with Motu and, of course, Disclosure Day most recently. I think that a lot of people will get a lot out of the movie. And if you have kids and grandkids, I don't think you're going to have any trouble with it. I think that for a change, Rotten Tomatoes and the reviewers have picked this from the beginning. Now, you're going to see some things in here that won't resonate very well with you. Clearly, they're pressing the message in a more subtle way, but it still exists. They're still trying to capture a different audience. They're trying to present something different and forcing people who wouldn't traditionally enjoy it to, maybe consider it. Setting all of that aside, I'm going to say that it's a solid message. It may not be a return to form, as other reviewers have already stated, but it's probably good enough, which leads me to what my score is. This is a 6.5 out of 10. It's not a 7. It's not a 6. It's in between, which means it gets a D+. If you're going to give it a grade school grading system, it's not a passing grade. It's not average. It's below average, and it's a D+. If you are okay with waiting for streaming, you're not going to miss anything. I mean, Disney Minus is there for a reason. It's for their D+ and D- products that they've been offering for the course of the last decade. There's a reason why things are moved to streaming rather quickly, which is going to include The Blandalorian and Grey Goose soon enough. But at least this is better than that, or at least on par, and you're not going to feel like you wasted your time. If you spend too much and you go to a largest possible screen situation, you likely will feel a little bit cheated. But if you have young children or grandchildren, well, maybe you'll feel differently. At the end of the day, if that's what you're looking for out of a movie, you won't be disappointed. Me, as it turns out, was slightly disappointed. And while I root for Pixar every single time, ever since Hoppers, I felt like they've missed it every single time. At least there wasn't any bean mouth in this one, and that's saying something. On that note, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know those down in the comments section below. As you can tell, I'm not nearly as frustrated as I was with Disclosure Day, and you can check that review out from last weekend right up there. But I am not exactly the most thrilled person in the room. And maybe, just maybe, if you don't have kids or grandkids that you need to drag to this, you may not want to bother, because you might be, well, surrounded by Disney adults and tiaras with Stitch bags. I don't know. Maybe that's your thing. Regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, as I suggested before. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just not necessarily at a Pixar movie again.